All right. Thank you so much, Claire. My name is Mik Moore. I am the co-founder and co-director of the AzN Laughter Lab. Katie Borm-Chatu, who would love to be here and may join us by phone, but has ceded facilitating duties to me tonight, is my co-director. Before we get started, just to briefly have the other members of the AzN Laughter team introduce themselves. So Claire, and then Bethany, and then Kenice would be great.
I'm being an admin on the Zoom right now, but I can go quickly. I'm Clare Kenny. I am the program director. I'm celebrating 1 year at Yau, and I'm so excited to meet this next year's group of comedians and writers who are creating culture-changing comedy.
Yay, Claire. Claire's the best. Hi, I'm Bethany Hall. I'm the creative director here at the AzN Laughter Lab, and I am a comedian myself and producer. So a lot of my job involves, like, you know, imagining what I wish people did for me and then doing it for you all. So I'm, like Claire said, I'm so excited to get to know you all and read your submissions and everything like that. And I'll pass it on to Kenice.
Hi, I'm Kenice, also a comedian, stand-up primarily. I love that I recognize some of the names on this from people who are out here on the scene. I'm in New York, and I am so excited to see what you guys come up with.
All right. Well, thank you for the quick introductions. I'm going to be brief. What I'm going to do is give you just a brief background about what the lab is and the process that you're looking at coming up with the application process and how the rest of the year plays out. And then we have some incredible performers, comedians who were with us in our 2021 Laughter Lab, who are going to answer some questions that you have, but also tell you a little bit about their experience applying for the Laughter Lab in 2021, and then being finalists and getting trained, and then ultimately going to perform at the showcase, pitch showcases back in the fall of 2021. And then once they're done, Bethany may throw a few
hot tips.
Hot tips. I won't tell you where she thought of these hot tips. So they're
in the shower.
There it is. And and then we're going to open it up to your questions. And by open it up, I mean not let any of you talk, because that will be chaos, unfortunately. But we have a Google Doc, which will be shared in the chat, and you just click on the Google Doc, and then you go in and you drop your questions there, and then we'll answer them as best we can. We only have an hour, and there are a lot of you, so we'll do our best. If there are questions that we don't get to on the call, we will do our best to aggregate those and put them in our FAQs on the website. So you'll still get your questions answered. And then if you have to leave the call early, or if you have a friend who wanted to do this, but they're not here, we are recording this call. And so we will post this on our YouTube page. So you can direct your friends there, or you can go back and rewatch it if it was that good. Whatever you want to do with it, it's up to you. All right. So very briefly, the background on the AzN Laughter Lab. We are in our 4th year. So our first year was in 2019. And we were created to support comedians that were developing comedy that had something to say, some kind of social impact or social change perspective. And our goal was to support these comedians in their efforts to bring their projects to fruition, bring them to market, put them in relationship with folks in Hollywood, but also put them in relationship with folks who work in social movements. So it's our partners. If you go to our website, you'll see are both, some of the big Hollywood names like Netflix and Amazon, and production companies and agencies, management companies, but also nonprofit organizations like Color Change and GLAAD, and groups like that work specifically in Hollywood, but also in our social change movement. So that's the community of folks that are behind it. The basic process is pretty simple. Applications opened last week. They stay open for about a month. So mid-February, I believe it's the 18th, the end of the day, is the application deadline. My strong recommendation is that do not wait until the final hours of the final day to submit your applications. Every year we have a number of people who attempt to submit their application in the last hour or minutes, and something goes wrong, and then they're unable to submit. So just by way of warning, try not to procrastinate to the very end. Anyone can apply. There is no fee. You may only apply once. That's one of our rules. The exception to that rule is if somebody else is applying and you are a part of their project, they're the principal, but you're participating in it, they can apply and they can include you as a second. But if you're the principal or the only person on a project, only one application per person. So, so it really gives some thought to which of the projects that you may have in your pocket that you want to put in front of us. Once we get all the applications, we go through a number of rounds of assessing, reading the applications. Ultimately, it gets narrowed down, and the top applications are reviewed by our selection committee. If you go to our website, you can see who's on the selection committee. It's a pretty incredible group of comedians and comedy producers, folks whose names you'll probably recognize. They give us invaluable feedback on the applications to really help us make a decision about which to choose. And then if you take a look also on the website, we have a leadership committee. The leadership committee ultimately makes the decisions based on recommendations coming from the selection committee. So that process takes place in February and March. And by the beginning of April, we let 20 projects know that they've been selected as finalists. All the finalists are invited to a retreat where we spend a full weekend doing pitch training. So specifically working on the pitches for the projects that you've applied to the lab with. After that weekend, we go back and we make a decision about which of those 20 projects get invited to showcase. So we do 2 showcases, a New York showcase and an LA showcase. Those are in September. And we pay for all your costs. So if you have to fly out, we cover your costs. If you need a place to stay for the night, we cover your costs. Same thing with the retreat. So there's no expenses. If you make it to the showcase, we also give you a stipend. That stipend's intended to, well, you can do with it what you want, but the theory behind the stipend is that you're going to be putting work into preparing for your pitch showcase, and we should all be paid for the work that we do. So we don't expect you to do labor for free. So everyone who makes it to that stage gets a stipend in addition to money to cover your flight and hotel to attend. The rationale, like why we choose one project or another, again, most of this stuff is on the website and we're happy to answer questions about it, but we're looking for projects that do 2 things well. One is that we think have some commercial potential. We're really trying to help projects that we think can go somewhere, but also really looking for projects that say something important, that have a point of view, and that we think can make a social impact. So those are the 2 criteria that we're weighing at all times. And if you go to our website, you can see all of the projects over the past 3 cycles that have been either finalists or winners. And if you look at them, you'll get a sense of the kind of projects that tend to come through. I will say we are completely agnostic as to what issue or social change topic that you're focused on. It literally could be anything. We're also agnostic on the kind of comedy that you do. And that's both means that you could be a stand-up, or you could be wanting to do a half-hour sitcom, you could have a film idea, you could have a book, a podcast, doesn't matter. We're open to anything. I will note the majority of the projects we end up moving forward tend to be scripted for television, usually a few digital, a couple stand-up projects every year, and then usually a handful of others that sort of fall in between, like 1 or 2 films, things like that. Again, it's worth looking at projects that were already approved to get a sense of the kinds of things that we like, but we're looking for original projects and including things that, that nobody's ever done before. So that's what we look for, and we've been really lucky and gotten a lot of great projects over the last 3 years. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm really excited. Every year we've had winners from our past year come onto this call to share their experience with you. So I want to turn it over to the three incredible women from AzN PoP who were finalists and then showcase participants back in 2021. I'll let them introduce themselves. And then Bethany will say a few words, and then we'll open up the Google Doc for questions.
Before AzN PoP, I just want to say no one's put any questions in the Google Doc yet. So get your questions over there.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, we're AzN PoP. There's 3/4 of us on here. I'm Iliana.
I'm Angel.
I'm Anna.
Yes, and we were winners last year, which was a thrill. So I guess should we just go to the questions that we prepared some answers to some general questions that we hope are helpful for all of you, so we can just get started with that.
Cool. Okay. Hi, everyone. Are we ready? Okay.
Hi.
So why did we apply? So we applied as a team of 4, which I think was actually unprecedented for Yes and Laughter Lab, aka y'all. So I applied with my sketch team, AzN PoP. We applied because we had been active in the New York comedy scene for about six years. And we had a long run at UCB, and we felt like we had done everything we could in our power up until that point. And so we felt like the next step was to write a half-hour scripted show. And I think this is the problem everyone has with show business and the business of comedy, which is that it feels very mysterious. The gatekeepers feel very elusive. I don't know if I'm using the word elusive correctly. It feels very difficult to break in, right? That's why we're all here. And I think we were really craving a community of supportive mentors and other supportive peers. And so I think, that's why we applied, really. We had a half-hour scripted comedy, and then we just didn't know what to do with it next, because we're not Brad Pitt. That's not a good example. He's not a comedian. I don't love improv. So I'm trying to improvise. Anyway, okay. So we applied because we wanted a sense of supportive community of comedy peers. And also, I personally trusted their taste because some of their alumni are friends of ours, Keisha Zoller, Lorena Russi, people who have gone on to have successful TV writing careers, who cannot be here tonight because they're writing right now in a room. And so that's why we applied. Next question. How did you choose which project to apply with? So we decided to apply with an original half-hour pilot, and we applied with a fully scripted pilot, a Bible / treatment, and we had a lot of supplemental videos of us performing live. Having said that, I don't think you need all that fancy stuff to apply. I think if you had an idea a few months ago and you want to flesh it out, I think you can pitch that. I'm not sure. That's not for me to say. So
that is correct.
Okay, great. So I don't think you need a fully fleshed script to apply, but if you do, that's also great. And so I will say for us, it was not the very first thing we've ever written together. That might be something to think about. If you have a few projects on your plate, maybe apply with the one that's most fleshed out or the one that matters to you the most. I think that's really important. When it comes time to preparing a pitch, why you can tell the story is really important, and why you should be the one to tell the story. So if the project matters to you, I think that's that's a great way to pick what to apply with. Why which one matters to you the most?
I think that goes a great segue into what we emphasized in our application and what we wanted to make sure stood out. And you know, for us, it's our tagline is like 4 Asian women in their mid-30s trying to start a pop group. And the main thing is 4 Asian women. Like there's no show with 4 Asian women. So that's something that we really want to emphasize on who we are. And, you know, like, I feel like I hear a lot of people going, oh, it must be really easy for women now or for BIPOC folks. They don't say BIPOC or minority, they probably say minorities because they're saying, oh, you know, like there's no room for white men anymore. And I feel like that's still not true because we still don't see that, you know, like tell us if that's true, then show it to us. And I think that's still not the case. So this is why we want to tell our stories and why AzN Laughter Lab really like helps support that. One of the anecdotes that I always talk about being an Asian pop is I feel like whenever I was in an improv group or a sketch group, and whenever I felt like, oh, I'm the only Asian woman here, and secretly I felt like I liked it because that was the only way I could stand out, and like there's only room for one of us. But then like with Asian pop, even though we're all Asian women, I feel like I still stand out because, you know, everyone's different, everyone is an individual. And that was something that we really wanted to emphasize in our story, saying that there is room for all of us. There's not just one Asian story out there, you know, like we can't write anymore. And with any other of your, whatever your stories are, like it should really be yours. And I think that's important to think about, that you don't have to worry about kind of being like, oh, it's that story's already out there, I can't tell mine because it's only the cookie cutter for one. So I think just knowing like who you are and just keep telling it, because we have heard, you know, the same stories over and over again. So it's time for you to show yours. And that's something that we really want to emphasize. And you know, we are, as Anna said, we were performers. We wanted to showcase our music and all the things that we've done up to this point. And since we were performers, we were able to kind of bring our pilot to life without just saying it. Like we're able to kind of perform it and showing everyone who we are as creators. And the next question is about the training weekend, the finalist training weekend. That was very, very useful because even though we've done this, a lot of times there are always room for improvement and always needing to kind of take a step back to see what the bigger picture is, because we've been doing it for so long. So seeing other people's perspective and all the speakers they have, this guests, there's a lot of nonprofit speakers, which is important and different from this lab because not just industry, they have people who help us see to support our stories, which is the nonprofit folks. And they help so much with seeing why we matter. A lot of the training weekend was just inspiration. You know, it was like going to a TED Talk all the time, and that was just, I just felt so good. And again, it didn't feel like competition. Like this is a competition, but it felt like I wanted to support everyone's stories and vice versa. So it felt really nice in that way, where it was just a group of us trying to help each other. And just so interesting listening to people's ideas and where people came from. And, you know, I felt like, you know, we were winners already, even though we were part of the training. So yeah, that's my questions. I'll pass it on to Iliana.
Hi. Okay, cool. So after the finalist training weekend, we went on to the showcase. So there are 2 rounds of kind of like pitching. So there was the first one, which happened during the training weekend, which was really cool because it was just for the other applicants as well and the other finalists. And it was done over Zoom, but somehow it just felt very connected because we had this like one-on-one time with another team, and we were able to get feedback from the other team, and we were able to give feedback. So it was really cool meeting like other New York performers also that we may not have known. And the one person that we were paired with, Zach, we actually like got to perform on his show later at Union Hall for like, so that was really cool to like build that relationship just based off of that one meeting we had. And of course his project was really cool, so that was fun. But so we had this first pitch, which was like, we got feedback from the team, and of course it was very encouraging because everyone at Y'all is so supportive, and we just felt like Angel said, we felt like amazing after that training weekend. And then we found out we were winners, which was so cool. And we thought that we would be pitching in New York because we applied as a New York team. But then the Y'all team asked us if we wanted to do LA, which was really exciting because we had been kind of hoping to do that. Because honestly, with this pilot over the pandemic, we were able to pitch it here and there to like a few production companies in New York. So we felt like, not that we had exhausted pitching people in New York, but we were like, oh, we want to branch out to LA. And so through Y'all and becoming a winner, we got to go out to LA and pitch to like production companies that, you know, that were like, cool, send your materials over or whatever. But like, we never really got to perform or do anything for them. So the showcase itself was amazing because for me, like my bucket list was getting to perform, like to meet with the production company for The Lonely Island, and they were there, and we got like feedback from them, and that was totally a dream come true. Yeah, so it was just like a really, honestly, just like an exhilarating day because we got to sit through everyone else, all the other winners' pitches, got to see them receive feedback, and also have like these amazing pitches that was like that, and it was just really cool to see that everyone had really good ideas. It almost, you know, it's like you always want your friends and peers to succeed, but like seeing them succeed like right before your eyes was really exciting. And also to have industry people also being excited about their projects and our projects, it was just really cool. It was a long day, but it was very exciting to be there supporting each other and also getting to pitch for these amazing teams. What else? Oh yeah, I feel like I do want to go a little more into what the showcase itself was like. So basically each winner gets to pitch their project, and then after they pitch their project with whatever they prepared, you basically receive feedback from every individual. Oh, there's my dog, sorry. You basically receive individualized feedback from the industry that's there to see your presentation, but the whole theater is filled with industry. So there's like people that are there to see you, but other industry that are just sitting in the room as well and supporting. But the people that are there to see you get direct contact to you and are able to give you feedback. So that was really fun. And then what else? I'm trying to think what else. That's basically how it went for the whole day. And there were about 5 or 6 of us. I don't remember. But yeah, it was really exciting. And then I feel like it was just a long day. It's a blur. Angel, Anna, do you feel like, what else am I missing? It felt like such a big day, and I'm trying to think what else there was. That's it, right? And there was a food truck.
I think we were really like anxious and nervous, so a lot of our days were like practicing our pitch.
Yeah, it was a lot of practicing the pitch because, you know, like even though we had run it, you basically do the pitch that you did for the first round, like the training weekend, and then they give you notes. The team gives you notes, and then you fine tune it, and then you bring that final pitch to the showcase. So yeah, it was a blur of like supporting your other peers as well as worrying about your own pitch. And the last question that we have was, what was your favorite part of being a part of Y'all? And honestly was getting to meet everyone. Like I mentioned earlier, getting to build the relationships with other performers is just really great. Like, you know, like people who do stand up, and, you know, we're more in the sketch world, so we don't really overlap in that way. And then also building relationships with the Y'all team. Another friend had asked me about like, oh, you know, why should I apply? And although there, for some people, there might not be an immediate like, oh, you get to write for this TV show now. Like Mik and Claire came to see our show the other day, and like to feel that support or like not the other day, in December, but just to have that support is, I think, so valuable. You know, it's like you're building these relationships that are actually meant for a lifetime. And I really feel like this whole experience, the people here have our backs, and that's really, I think that's really hard to come by in this industry. And like when you find those people, you just want to continue to stay like connected with them. Um, and yeah, and like there have been other people who have like their animated series went to Comedy Central, and like seeing them succeed is so inspiring. It's like, oh, we could be next. You know, it really gives you that hope to keep on pursuing what you want to do. Yeah, I think that's it.
That was awesome. Thank you so much to all three of you. Stick around because I just looked at the Google Doc. There's like 3 pages of questions already, and we have 30 minutes to answer them all. Bethany, do you want to quickly go, or do you want to hold off and maybe do
I want to give I'm ready. I'm ready to share my hot
get
tips.
through it?
I will. Listening to AzN PoP, I'm like, oh man, what a cool program. Okay, these are my hot tips for people when you're filling out your applications. There's like 3 main points. I'm gonna say them really, really fast so we can answer your questions. My first big point is that we trust that your issue is important. So please don't waste a lot of precious time explaining to us why your social justice issue matters. We agree with you. What we really want to learn is, why are you the person to tell us about it? And how is it funny? Like, some comedians who I admire apply for this, and like, I'm like, bring me what's funny. So I think like, just trust that we get it. And so all your job is just showing us who you are and why you're funny, and tell us the story that you're trying to tell. And there's like academics on our team, so you don't have to like give us a lecture about like why your issue matters. We agree. Also, really straightforward matters. Like, if there's something confusing about what you're writing, maybe save that for a later conversation. Just really try and explain simply what your pitch is. You don't necessarily have to take us on this huge long journey. We just want to know what your pitch is, why it's funny, why it's relevant right now. And then finally, and I think this is key. Well, I think they're all key. They're my hot tips that I thought of while I was in the shower 45 minutes ago. Less is more. So if like you have a video of yourself doing stand-up and you're not a stand-up and you're like, oh, this is an example of some comedy I've done, and you don't think it's the best representation of your humor or your style, you don't have to send that to us. So don't send that to us. Only put the things that you think is like, this is brilliant. This is my brilliant work. Leave the rest of it behind. Those are my hot tips. Kenice Mobley, did I forget any hot tips?
Hi, I'm just gonna underline, circle, exclamation point beside it. Is it funny? And is it funny quickly? I have a background in film. That's what I got my degree in. And so I've read so many scripts, and they're like, this is a humor script. And it's not, I see the first joke on page 10. Reconsider that, I would say, if that's your strategy, maybe making it clear that it's funny at first, do that. That's my final thing.
Thanks, Kenice. Okay, questions and answers.
The questions, I'm gonna get us through this question. Let me see how many pages we got. I'm not even gonna look. It's a lot of pages. We're not gonna be able to answer every question, but we will do our best.
Let me jump in 1 second. So I am the person writing in the blue in the doc. I'm trying to answer some of the questions that are really easy information just from our site and from our rules. So please don't write answers. I'm writing the answers. And so I'll be adding answers there as best I can. And then Mik and Bethany and Kenice will go through and answer the ones that maybe deserve a little more detail and attention. So thank you.
Great. This has come up a bunch of times. How developed should your project be when you apply? Obviously, you heard from the fabulous AzN PoP folks about their experience. We have had projects that have had like 2 seasons of a web series like in the bag apply, and we've had projects that are like just a concept on paper. And we'll take anything.
And we've greenlit both of those types.
Both of those have moved forward. So that's not the thing. right, that's going to sort of push you over the top. It's really all the other factors that folks have mentioned already. Background experience, we get this question a lot too. Again, we've had people who have been in the scene for, you know, a decade or 2 decades, like doing the work. And we have people who are like in their first couple years. If you're funny, if you're original, like that's what matters most of all. And you can be a funny 22-year-old and you can be a funny 40-year-old. So yeah, either way, those are fine. If you're submitting a film, would providing a proof of concept short film help? How much of the script should I share? Maybe Bethany or Kenice, you want to speak to this about, since I know you've read tons of applications, about how much of something people should share.
Well, you heard my lecture 5 seconds ago about less is more. So I would emphasize that again. If you have a script and you are like, damn, this script is great, but these 6 pages are the best 6 pages, I might encourage you to include the funniest 6 pages and put them up first, get people laughing, and say, I also have this is actually also a fully written script. Love to talk to you about it later. Or if you have a deck that like really colors in the whole idea brilliantly, and you have a spec script with it, a writing whatever script with it, and you feel like this is almost there, maybe just include the deck. Mobley?
I agree. That's it.
Kenice is my favorite person to work with. Okay, goodbye. I love you. I mean, everyone's my favorite person. I love everyone.
So someone asked after hearing the folks from AzN PoP say, we were 4. And then someone said, but the application says you can only be 2. So that seems to be a contradiction that's worth explaining. So the part of this has to do with COVID. So last year we did our retreat as a virtual retreat, which meant that there was no cost in having a group that's larger than 2 participate. This year, our intention is to do an in-person retreat for the training, and we have a limited budget. So we can't afford to bring 4 people from a group to the leadership training. So you need to designate who, some projects it's just 1 person, that's totally fine. If you have a project with 2 people or more than 2 people, you need to tell us who the 2 like principals are on the project, because ultimately if you're selected to be part of the training, only 2 people can come to the training because we have a limited budget. That said, if you are asked to come to Showcase, we have a fixed amount of money that we pay to help cover travel costs. We have had groups that have decided to split that money amongst 4 people. And it's your money to do with what you like. So if you want to do that and bring more people, that's fine. But we have built our budget on the assumption that teams are capped at 2, and that's what we're paying for. So that's the distinction, and that's why it was easier for us to have 4 people last year, because there's no limit on how many folks you can put on a Zoom call. All right, other questions? Oh yeah, we've had some questions about sort of unconventional comedies, dark comedy, horror comedy, things like that. I don't know if there's some examples of this from this year, but I don't know if any of the folks from AzN PoP want to speak to sort of the diversity of genres and kinds of comedy that you saw.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I saw a question on the forum too. Does the element of social issue need to be? Honestly, ours was, like our half hour is very like 30 Rock, very like joke heavy. So when we applied, I think we were concerned. It's like, oh, there's not like a huge social justice issue, but representation is a big deal, and like we learned that through y'all as well. And the other people that we saw, there were some really heavy things, like topics of suicide that were made funny, if you can believe it, but it was like done so well, So yeah, it really run the gamut of like really silly to really dark social issues. So I think don't be afraid. Again, to what like Anna said, like if it's important to you and you are gifted in the way of making it funny, it'll be exactly right, you know? Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's a great example of the project that dealt with suicide. I remember when we were reading it, like laughing out loud, at the script. And it was also dark in some places, but also hilarious in others. We had a horror comedy set on a Native American boarding school. So it doesn't have to be, a certain kind of humor, but it does need to be funny. All right, here's a question.
And sorry, Mick, I just want to add too, we also had like, somebody was pitching like a live festival, and doesn't even have a TV element to it, right? Like it's just, they wanted to do a festival, and that got through, and a one person show got through, which was also made for the stage. So just emphasizing not only genre, but also like form of comedy, we are agnostic to.
Great. So there's a question about, we ask in the application, are you formally, it's a project formally attached to any production partners, media companies, or talent not listed, et cetera. And then the question is like, I have a podcast with an indie zine. Does that count? Like use your best judgment. I think the reason we put that in there is because we're trying to focus on folks that are not already in like a relationship with a major production company that's already moving forward on your project. Like that's, you don't need us, right? You don't need this program. If for example, we've had projects that, have been web series on YouTube, or, have been out in the world with some technical sort of formal partners, but nothing that was, super high profile or mainstream, or not where you ultimately want it to be. So I wouldn't let that stand in the way. But obviously, if you've already got a deal with Netflix for your project, like you don't need the AzN Laughter Lab. All right, more questions. On the social justice side, I would love, we get this question a lot. I mean, obviously the application itself will ask you specific questions about the social justice elements in your project. And I'd love to have some of the rest of our team sort of speak to this. I don't know if Kenice, you've read a lot of applications. Do you want to sort of speak to the way in which people incorporate social justice themes into their projects?
Sure. A lot of the projects deal with representation. A lot of them deal with people who are working on a social justice issue. So whether it be a sitcom about people trying to fix a school, which was one of the projects last year, a school specifically in a Black neighborhood that was lacking funding. It's not there's a show right now that's like one of the most popular shows in America, and I'm like super excited about Abbott Elementary. It's not that, but it was like that. And so something where it's like people working in that field, people just simply being themselves, representation. There's all kinds of things. I will say, this is not an answer to your question, but it is an ask as someone who has to read all of these. If your project is, I exist, and isn't that like, I'd love to get additional angles on it. And if it's something that we've seen everywhere, maybe consider that other people are submitting the exact same thing. So differentiate it, make it a unique and personal project. Originality is, I think, one of the things that we've discussed. Please, dear God, make it original. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say.
Great. So we got a few questions about what have projects gone on to sell or been produced, or sort of what's the sort of outcome? What have we seen? And it's exciting. What's exciting, we've actually had shows that have sold. We've had people get representation. This past year, I think it was mentioned earlier, Comedy Central, we had an animated show that was part of the Laughter Lab that Comedy Central picked up. NBC bought a show from the previous year. Amazon, BET. So yes, people have sold their shows, but people have also found representation who didn't have representation before, which is obviously for a lot of people a really important step to getting their show made. People have found production partners through this. And then people have found really interesting partnerships with our nonprofit partners. So we've had projects that like a digital series that found a funder through a nonprofit partner that got to do work with a nonprofit partner. We've had foundations that have put money behind podcasts that have come through that were focused on an issue that the foundation cared about, so they put money behind it. So we try to emphasize that there are lots of different kinds of projects and there are lots of different metrics of success. And then I would say, there are also a lot of people who the project that they brought to the Laughter Lab probably ultimately will never get made, but there were a lot of other things that they got out of the lab that they felt were really valuable. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
I wanted to add that. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add, I got a legit agent through the Laughter. Like they just went to the showcase and they saw me performing, and then they signed. It was like pretty much the day after I had to email them all these videos, and then it was helpful to just showcase yourself and know people and people do come to see the showcase, so that's nice.
I wanted to add that we won last year, but I have also been rejected from AzN Laughter Lab, so don't give up. That's it.
Rejected is such a strong word, Anna. You were never rejected.
Yes, I was.
So, all right, back to the questions. We got 15 minutes left. So we've heard a lot of animation, other mediums. Yes, 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 yes. Literally, there's no question about what kind of comedy that we're not going to say yes to. How many projects are chosen? How many winning projects are chosen? So we choose 20 projects that are finalists. All the finalists get trained, and then we choose usually around 10 projects to go to showcase. Last year we did 12. So it's possible that we do more than 10, but about half of the projects that are selected as finalists and get trained end up being invited to showcase. If we are praised for being a comedic storyteller, you rather hear less than more about our story behind our idea. I think,
I would say, how interesting is that story?
Yeah, I mean, it's you're applying for the project, like you're not applying as an individual, but 100% we want to know who you are, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're dealing with you as an individual, and I think we're also aware that while our hope is that every single project that comes through realizes itself, that's not always going to be the case, right? So we're also looking at the individual as well in ways that we can help people.
I also want to just add, when we are reading these applications, we read so many, and I love reading every single one. Like, I open it up and I'm like, okay, what's this going to be? Who's like the genius behind this? So like, there's so much enthusiasm and encouragement and like hope for everyone who submits. So I just want to make that clear. Like these guidelines that we're giving you is because we just want you to shine in a way that succeeds in the program that we run. And we just can't wait to know you better through your application, and then hopefully, in person in the training and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Someone asked, is it important to have a social media presence? No.
You can't change who you are. If you don't have a social media presence right now, you don't have a social media presence. If you got a great idea, that's still valid.
Yeah. All right, more questions. How many applicants do we usually get? 400 is around how many we usually get. We'll see, this year. but we usually get around 400 applicants and we're picking 20. So, yep, that's the process. Why are residents of Alaska not eligible to apply or residents of Hawaii? Okay, we answered that question, so I won't go into it. Into projects are you best set up to support? That's a really interesting question. So I'll repeat what I said earlier. We get most of the projects that we get tend to be scripted television. We get a decent amount of stand-up. We get a decent amount of film, and we get some animation and some digital only. And that's, you know, and then occasionally like a podcast or something like that. So that's most of what we end up getting. And I'd say while we are set up and our intention is to support everyone, obviously the places where we get way more applications, I would say we end up having more relationships and spend more time in. So I'd say that's a fair answer, but we're pretty committed to building out our partnerships so that there aren't any areas of or any kinds of content that we can't be helpful on. And you know, one of the things I'd love for anyone from the sort of AzN PoP crew to talk about the pitch table piece a little bit more, because that's really where we try to tailor sort of who you're pitching to what your project is. So I don't know if anyone can speak to that process a little bit.
Yeah, so when we realized we were going to the showcase, what happened was Claire sent over basically a doc, organized Claire, and she asked us like what our dream production companies were. And then also, I think there were like dream production companies as well as like NGOs that we wanted to help like support our cause or our issue. So I forgot how many there were, but was it 12 people at a table?
Yeah, just 10 to 12.
Yeah, that's right, 10 to 12. So basically, you ideally want like a few NGOs and then some production companies. So y'all will reach out to these people and then basically pitch our project to them to be like, hey, come see this group, because they could use your help with the like NGO side of it and like the social justice part of it, as well as just getting them to see what our project's about. So yeah, it was basically it's divided up that way. And so it's tailored to like what the production company is looking for. Like they're not going to bring in like for us, it was a lot of like networks and stuff because we have a half hour. They're not going to bring in, you know, like a film studio for us or like pair us with that type of industry because it doesn't serve what our project is that we're pitching. Yeah, is that helpful? Is there anything? Yeah, what else?
Yeah, that's our intention. That's how we tailor who you're pitching to the kind of project that you have. We had one, I think someone mentioned earlier, that was a festival, right? And so we were very intentional about finding folks that can support, right, the creation of a festival for that pitch table, who would not have made sense for a table about a film or a table about a television show or another kind of project. How important is the commercial viability of the project? Do they go for the more viable idea or the more social justice oriented one, but one that might not be palatable, say, to a network? This is a great question. I think we get it a lot. Maybe Bethany or Kenice to speak to this, if you can.
Kenice, why don't you go?
I think you're the best person to answer this.
Okay. Well, I'll answer. My answer, again, full disclosure, this is just my answer. You do you. If it's, I feel like a broken record. If it's funny, it's going to stand out. If it's unique, it's going to stand out. If it's a show, if it's an idea that a network will never make, that does not mean it will not be successful in this program. We work with the best social justice organizations out there. we work with funders, we work with, oh, there's so many ways to get a project made. And this is, in many ways, it's a rebellion against the industry, even though we work very close in tandem with the industry as well. So like there are no limits, and we don't want, it feels crazy, but we don't want there to be limits, because there's so many amazing, beautiful ways to make art, to make a difference, to make an impact, and to spread humor and change in the world. So
That was a fantastic answer, and I agree with everything you just said.
oh my gosh, thanks so much, Kenice.
I'll just also say for the record, we have 100% taken projects where we thought the commercial viability was very low, even just because we thought they were projects that people needed to know about. And even if there was just a tiny chance that they might get made, that we wanted to play a role in it. Part of the ethos here, right, is like, sometimes people have ideas that literally nobody is going to take a chance on. And so we do look for projects specifically like that to include.
And I would add too that like projects are tied often so intimately with their creator. And so sometimes we love the artist behind the project so much, and that makes the project sing, even if we're like, well, this doesn't have a chance, but this artist is incredible and deserves a platform. I don't know how that helps, because your pitch still has to be great, but just so you know.
Yeah, well, don't be scared off if you're like, no one's ever going to buy this thing.
No.
Like, don't be scared off that if it's great, even if you think no one will buy it because people are idiots, submit it. Would the program consider bringing 2 comedians together who met online but live in different countries? For example, America and London, and or America and Egypt. So the short answer is, if one of them is based in the United States, that person can apply. Like, we only accept applications from within the US. The issue for us is as I think I said earlier, is like, we have a limit on how much money we can spend per project on travel and hotel, right? So we can't be flying people all around the world. That said, we want to do what we can to make these things work. So if you have a project and you're in the US and you have a partner that's in Egypt, and there's a way to sort of figure out how to make it work, we're open to it. But we have sort of budgetary limitations that we can't sort of break, for individual projects. But don't not apply because one of your participants is out of the country. It's a great idea. We want to know about it, and if it's really great and it makes it all the way through, we'll do our best to figure out how to get your team all there. All right, we are down to the last few minutes. Anyone else, Claire or?
I think Claire highlighted some that maybe we should prioritize.
All right, I'm just skimming through. Claire, is there any that you're remembering that we haven't addressed? Oh, I'm looking at the highlights now. We did that one. How much final say does y'all have over the final project? Have you told people in the past that they couldn't do certain things? Bethany, Kenice, have we told people in the past that they can't do certain things? How much control do we have?
We have no control of anything. I don't even have control over what happens in my house. Our job in y'all is to help you with your pitch. We are not creative collaborators with you. Our job is to help hone your pitch, elevate the story you're trying to tell. We don't say, here's a great spot for a joke in your script, if that makes sense. So and we don't take credit for your work also. So should you be a winner like the AzN PoP ladies, that doesn't mean that forevermore we're co-signed onto this project. This is your work, your creation. So our job is strictly to help emphasize that.
Yeah, it's pretty important to know, like, we don't take any, there's no strings attached to this. You completely own everything you bring to the table when you come in the door, when you're out of the door. We're essentially a matchmaker. So we're trying to put you into relationship with the people who may want to buy your show, or may want to put money into it, or may want to partner with you, or may want to represent you. We want to introduce you to them. That's why we're doing this, but we we have no formal involvement besides the work that we do with you in the lab itself. All right, we are almost out of time. So instead of taking more questions, just quick, anything that you think we left out, Bethany, Kenice, or AzN PoP?
I thought you were going to say, so everyone just quickly introduce yourself. So we were just going to hear from like the
Quick round
100.
robin, name, phone. No.
I think you did a wonderful job, Mick. And AzN PoP, you know, I'm obsessed with you. And Claire does everything, so I'll stop talking now.
Last minute words of wisdom. Claire, do you want to add anything? You've been our behind the scenes person for this call.
Yeah, well, thank you, everyone. Our website, yesandlaughterlab.com, has a lot of information about the comedy that we support, our partners, the folks in the industry and nonprofits who support us, who want to support you. So read carefully, you know, on our website, read about the previous winners and their projects. If you have questions about, is this the right fit? That usually can help you get in the right direction. And then follow us on social media at Y'all Comedy. And if you want to find more information about the application and then submit an application, go to yesandlaughterlab.com/apply. And from there, you can click to submit an application, and you'll go to our applicant tracking platform, Submittable, and you'll submit a quick and easy application on Submittable. So please follow us on social, check our website for updates, and thank you all for joining us. And thank you to
Oh, I
AzN
think
PoP
Kenice has
for
something.
representing.
Kenice has something.
Just because you said if there's any last minute tips, if this is your first time applying to something, if this is your first time really sending out this idea, having it submitted to something, please have someone else read over it to make sure that it makes sense to other people. Because some of you have such wonderful ideas in your head and it's clear that you're very passionate about it, but have just another set of eyes to say, oh, sorry, when you say that, it makes me think of something completely different and bad. But now that you've explained it to me, it sounds like a good thing. So make that adjustment. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Kenice. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Bethany. Thanks, Iliana. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Angel. Thank you all for coming. And we are excited to read your applications.
Thanks, everyone.